Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now, what have we got for you today? Back by popular demand is another wildlife painting. So we're going to have a go at this little blue tit. So come and join me and we'll paint it together. Just before we start, I'd like to answer a question a few of you have been asking me. I've had several people ask me if it's okay to exhibit locally one of their paintings that they've done from one of my tutorials and what are the copyright issues. And this will also go for people who are posting on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. And as far as I'm concerned, and I think I probably speak for most artists, it's absolutely fine. What I would say is it's always nice to leave a credit, and I think in most cases people do that. But where you may have an issue, let's say you copied the painting exactly, you had 1 million prints done, you sold them worldwide and then you retired to a villa in St. Moritz, might be a problem. But if you're selling to your friends or your neighbours or even up at your local cafe, good luck to you. Shall we make a start now? And here's the photo reference. It's by Hans Ben from Pixabay. Lovely photo. Okay, so here's another paint review, and again I must stress I'm not sponsored, all bought with my own pocket money. It's the Sennelier Test Pack, which comes in this rather smart tin box and includes 5 10 ml tubes, colours listed below. And here's the world's smallest book with stuff in it. Now, I've never used Sennelier watercolours before. I have their soft pastels, which are wonderful, so I'm really excited to try these. They're made in France and are famous for using honey in their binder. So in this demo, I'm only going to be using these 5 colours, so it should be a great test to see how well they mix. The other materials for today, just 2 brushes, a number 12 and number 6 round. My paper, we're going all out French, and we've got some Arches rough 300 pound, but any decent watercolour paper will do. I've also been asked about what tape I use. Now this is just some low-tack builder's type masking tape, which is great because it won't rip your paper when you peel it off. Okay, drawing as always, free of charge to download from my website. But if you fancy having a go at drawing this yourself, it's not too difficult. So for something like a bird, you can break it down into 2 simple elliptical shapes. Then once you've got those, you can just smooth it out. Now before we start, I'd just like to talk a little bit about backgrounds. You'll find that a lot of wildlife and botanical artists like to leave a pure white background, and this can look stunning, obviously putting all the emphasis on your subject. And this will also give your painting more of a sort of illustration feel. Or you could also put in a full background, which gives the painting more of a realistic, perhaps photographic approach. Now there's no wrong or no right, it's just whatever you prefer. And what I like to do is the best of both worlds, leaving some areas unpainted, but putting in an area of a vignetted background. This will also help if you want to bring out some contrasts in your subject matter. And I think it also helps to give a bit of an arty feel to your paintings. Okay, so let's make a start and a couple of mixes. Now, for ease of this video, I'm not going to give the paints their full posh names, but simply refer to them as red, yellow, blue, orange and grey. So this is a mix of yellow with just a tiny drop of red, and this is a cool grey mixed with about a 50% blue, 40% red and about a 10% yellow, just to neutralise it. Off we go. I'm painting the whole bird's body in with clean water, and I've slightly tinted it just so you can see it. Now using my number 12 straight into his chest with the yellow mix. And here I've just added a touch of red to the mix to warm it up and drop it in wet. Next with the grey mix. Now you have to work quite fast as I want this to all go into the wash before it dries. Now this is the blue on its own. Wow, love it. Very vibrant colour and the paint is moving beautifully. Must have something to do with the honey. Here I'm using the same grey for the markings on his chest. This is neat Payne's grey, and as you can see the colours are still blending beautifully. Now the water to paint ratio really does depend on how strong or weak you want the value, but as a general rule I like to use slightly more water than paint, so about a 60% paint, 40% water. Now a few of you spotted last week's deliberate error of my 70 to 40 ratio. Maths was never my strong point. Next, dry my brush off and lift out a few light bits. And also using a tissue. Again, all this has to be done before it dries. Here are a few more Payne's grey details. Now let's do his legs using my number 6 brush. And again you can see I'm lifting out some highlights with the damp brush. Okay, so we'll come back to finish the details on the bird. So what I'm doing here is simply re-wetting this area and dropping in some random colours still mixed from the same paints. And of course, a little splattering into the wet. And then exactly the same below. This time adding in a few green tones, just mixed from yellow and blue. Okay, next some ordinary table salt, and I'm just sprinkling into this bottom area only, and just a few granules, not mounds of it or it'll never dry. So now we need to let this totally dry and brush off any residue salt. It's a perfect time for a short break, and as it's a dry January, which to be fair I've taken absolutely no notice of whatsoever, a nice cup of Yorkshire tea. Next I'm mixing up a bluey brown. So for a brown you mix all 3 primaries together, but slightly more blue in this case. A good way to remember how to mix brown is if you can remember your infant school days, all the plasticine at the beginning of the term were lovely bright primary colours. But by the end of the year it was just brown. So I'm just giving this area a light squirt with water, but not saturating it, and painting in these branches with my number 12. Spray again for a bit of fuzziness to the edges. Dab out here a few areas with a tissue just to get a little texture. Back again with my number 6 brush for some shadows along the bottom edges and around his feet. And you can also see clearly here the lovely effect created by the salt. So here's the technique for the feathery effect. Make sure you lift your brush off the paper on each stroke, and a brush with a point is vital. It's definitely worth practicing this first. Using a very watery mix of the orange, I'm using my number 6 again and lightly painting in this feathery texture, but don't overdo it. Okay, now in with the grey and a few further details. Now, I'm no ornithologist, but you can see it's these details which really give the blue tit its characteristics. A little more detail here with the orange. And a few final tweaks on his feet. A little more blue here on his crown. Now it's dry, my favourite, smudge with a tissue technique, just to soften and give a little movement to these hard edges. It just gives that little bit of life. A lot of people have asked me what pastel pencil I use, and this is a Stabilo, I don't know, white pastel pencil, and it's great for white highlights. Again, I've been asked what is this scalpel I use, and it's not really a scalpel but just a cheap craft blade that I brought from a local DIY store, made by Stanley. Not him personally, but it's perfect for scratching out feathery white highlights. Just be careful though, we don't want any red on this painting. And I think we're done. And there's even a shaft of light just come through the studio window to illuminate the little fella. So what did I think of the Sennelier paints? Love them. They remind me a bit of the Daniel Smith's colours with their strength and vibrancy. The flow is lovely, helped by the honey of course. They're very luminous, even when up to 3 colours have been mixed, which to be fair you would expect from an artist grade watercolour. This box was nearly 19 UK pounds, which I think represents pretty good value. So if you want to try them out, then I think this test pack is a really good way to start. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did and you'll give it a go. This one's not too difficult. Just be bold, be brave and relax and enjoy the experience. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Look forward to seeing you all again next week. Take care everyone. Bye for now.